So I'm going to attempt to shed a little light on why racist white people don't want critical race theory. Now, if you watch the video that I posted, that was not me explaining what critical race theory is, you would understand that it's not an actual lesson. That's why I think it's so funny that these idiots are, we don't need critical race theory. We don't need people of color thinking that they're better than us. They're teaching their kids to be racist against white kids. They're not, idiot. If you even had a clue of what critical race theory is, you wouldn't be so ignorant, for one, right? Because they act like it's some kind of curriculum that's being taught in the school to teach kids of color to hate white kids, when in actuality the opposite is being done now. That's why they don't want things to change. Now, a lot of the stuff that I've been getting is from a book called The Chicano Labyrinth of Solitude, right? It's an old book, but it's helping me understand why the education system is so flawed. And this is why white people, and when I say white people, I mean ignorant, racist white people. Because I know not all white people are bad. And I know that some white people are actually smart enough to not be ignorant. But when I say white people, in this context, it's ignorant, racist white people. So if you look at the curriculum that's being taught, all the rhetoric that's being taught to our kids is white people are good, white people are smart, white people are better than people of color. That's why they're in control. White people came to this continent, conquered, slaughtered all the weak idiots, right? We were idiots. That's why they conquered us, because we were too stupid to defend ourselves. It had nothing to do with the fact that we were good people and we were trying to just be the way our gods and our religion taught us, right? To be kind to others and to be welcoming and generous and all that, right? Let's not talk about that. Let's not talk about the fact that the people that came over here were so greedy that they only wanted gold, right? Most of the conflict that happened was because they wanted gold. And that's where all the problems started, right? And, not to mention the disease and all that stuff, and the fact that they were not man enough to be honest, right? And the fact that our guns were not as sophisticated as the conquering whites, it's not an issue either, because we didn't really need, conquering weapons the way these greedy whites did, right? And I know it was the Spanish, but I'm saying whites because this country became white, and it's because of them, so they consider themselves white. Anyway, that's another issue. So that's what we're taught at school, right? This conquering, strong, intelligent people came over here and slaughtered and conquered a savage, beast-ridden society and made it better, right? They made it better by teaching them English. So anyway, and then we're taught that they went to Africa and they kidnapped, took by force all these Africans and enslaved them, right? Why? Out of greed, right? It's another thing that they were doing out of greed, because they were too lazy to farm their own plantations, so they needed slaves to do it for them, right? And we're taught that they were able to do that because they were better, stronger, and smarter, right? That's what we're taught in school. We're also taught that Japanese were bad people, right? They came and they bombed Pearl Harbor. So we went and what did we do? We dropped a couple of bombs on them. Why? Because we're bigger, better, and stronger. Now, we're not taught any of the things such as slavery is bad, right? We're not taught a lot of things like they deported a lot of our people illegally. You don't believe me? Look up Operation Wetback. And it's a whole thing, right? There's a thing. There was a program called the Bracero program. What that did was the United States knew that there were too many lazy white people here in this country, so they needed Mexicanos to come work. So they had a program called the Bracero program, right? They would borrow Mexicanos and let them work here, right? A lot of times, what greedy farm owners would do is, when they didn't want to pay workers, they would just have them deported. You know, what can you do if you're not here illegally? You can't really call the cops and stand up for your rights and take them to court and all this stuff. So they would deport them illegally. A lot of people got deported illegally when they were even citizens. Operation Wetback. And I know a lot about that because I did, I think, 2 papers on it. I've done 2 papers on it. And people were citizens. The cops and the immigration didn't care. They just grabbed brown people and got rid of them. We don't talk about that. You're not taught that in school. We're not taught about the concentration camps where they kept Japanese Americans in concentration camps here in the United States. We're not taught that stuff. Why? Because we're only fed this rhetoric that white people are good, smarter, stronger than people of color. That's why these politicians don't want that to change. They don't want, if you remember from history, right? Middle school, high school, what are you taught? If you're taught anything, you're taught Cesar Chavez was a civil rights worker. That's it. That's it. That's all you're taught. That's the one thing that you learn from Hispanic Heritage Month, right? You're taught that Cesar Chavez was a civil rights activist, and that's it. That's all you're taught about Beaners, because Beaners are bad. We don't need to learn about them in school. We don't need to learn about all their contributions to this country and to our society. We don't need to learn about Mexicanos and Aztecs and all the contributions that they have done. Like the fact that Aztecs invented chocolate, right? All we're taught about African Americans is we brought them over as slaves. They got tired of being enslaved. So Martin Luther King stood up for them and there was a civil rights movement, and that's it, right? We're not taught about all the contributions that African Americans have made to this country and to this society. Like all these authors that you read during my class in African American literature. You read all these authors, right? And it's like they have really good books, right? We're not taught about all the contributions that African Americans have made to this country. We're just taught that whites are good, whites are better, whites are smarter, whites are stronger. That's why racist people don't want our kids to learn the real truth, the real history, right? And that's one of the things that they talk about in this Chicano Labyrinth of Solitude. The school system has failed our kids for centuries because it's taught that white is right, brown is wrong, right? That's what you're taught. And the kids not only start to believe it, all the kids, white kids, brown kids, black kids, they all start to believe that since the white kids are being favored, they're the better kids and they're treated better. And he even talks about how hopefully things have changed, but he even talks about how even the teachers of color sometimes teach they treat the white kids better because that's the theories that we're taught and fed to believe, and that's what the curriculum teaches, right? We're supposed to teach that whites are better, whites are stronger, whites are dominant, right? That's what we're supposed to teach them. So they even go to the point of treating the kids differently. And if a kid of color is lucky enough to get like an advanced placement class, it's like, oh, well, good for you, because it's rare, right? It's rare that kids of color can actually be smart or do good and blah blah blah. So they're treated differently. Even the way they're treated in school is an issue. So you get these kids of color that grow up with inferiority complexes because that's the way that the school teaches them, right? You're inferior, whites are superior, keep your head down, know your role, and just tread along, right? So what happens? They either drop out of school because I don't want to be in the classroom that just constantly teaches me that I'm wrong for being brown, and I'm not going to amount to shit anyway because I'm not white. So why stay in a school that's not for me? So a lot of times they either drop out, or if they actually even graduate, you're stuck in a job where you keep your head down. You do as you're told because you're wrong and you need to be in your place, right? Because white is right, brown is wrong. I was lucky enough to be in a school that was mostly Chicano kids, so we didn't have that problem. Most of our teachers were like actually cool Chicano teachers that they treated us like actual human beings that were smart and deserved to be taught, right? So I was lucky, but not everybody is, especially if you live in a small town where before high school it was mostly white kids, right? Most of those kids were racist AF, and they believed all the stuff that the school taught them. You know, you kids are better because your forefathers founded this country. They didn't found shit, okay? I'm not going to go on and on about that one, but they didn't found shit. We were already here. We already had our own society, our own people here. But they're taught that they came here, conquered us, so that makes them better. That gives them like so many more rights than we do. So these kids of color, they get tired of hearing that shit. They really do. What do you think Black Lives Matter is about? It's because these kids are so tired of constantly being told you're wrong because you're black. You're the bad guy. And you're always going to be the bad guy. So we're going to treat you like a bad guy. And it's like the video says, right? It's not just the school, what they're taught in school. It's like all these laws, all these rules. Even, I mean, you can see it. You go into a predominantly white owned business and they automatically, their guard is up. Oh shit, there's a Chicano kid, right? He's coming in here to steal something or to rob us, right? If you watched some of my previous videos on YouTube about the racism, when I first moved here, I've always wanted to live in San Antonio because it's a predominantly Chicano city, but there's still racist white people that see us that way, right? And I encountered some of those people, and I'm like, even in a city like this, you meet people, you will encounter people that they think that brown people are bad because that's what they're taught, and you're not taught anything different. You're not taught that all kids are the same. We all are good, we all are bad, we all have our problems, but we're not all bad, right? That's what white kids are taught, that they are. All those black kids, all those brown kids, all those yellow kids, they're bad. Stay away from them. Protect yourself. You know, look at what they were taught back in the 50s and 60s, that if, this is the stupidest thing ever, if you see a white girl, you got to keep your eyes down. You can't look at her, and you can't look at her in the eyes. That's how brainwashed society was. And a lot of these people, they don't want things to change. They don't want things to change from that kind of society. They want it to stay where we, as people of color, keep our heads down, do as we're told. But if we're taught differently, if we're allowed theories like critical race theory to change the curriculum and the laws, the rules, the regulations, that kind of society is going to change. That's why they don't want it.